Life as a soldier in the American Civil War, 10 shocking and scandalous facts. The American Civil War was one of the most brutal conflicts in U.S. history, claiming over 600,000 lives. For soldiers on both sides, life was a harsh blend of violence, disease, and deprivation. Yet, beyond the battlefield, their daily struggles, coping mechanisms, and grim realities were as shocking as the war itself. Here are 10 of the most scandalous, surprising, and poignant truths about what it meant to be a soldier during the Civil War. Number 1. Death by diarrhea, a soldier's grim fate. While battlefield wounds accounted for approximately 110,000 deaths in the Civil War, disease was the leading killer, claiming nearly 400,000 lives. Among the deadliest illnesses were diarrhea and dysentery, which caused over 95,000 deaths due to unsanitary conditions. Soldiers drank contaminated water from streams and shared crowded latrines. A Union private described the plight in a letter dated June 1862, "We are surrounded by filth. Latrines overflow, and sickness is all around us." Medical understanding was rudimentary. Remedies like blue mass mercury pills, which poisoned patients, or opium tinctures, which caused constipation, often exacerbated the condition. Soldiers carried makeshift diarrhea belts, strips of cloth tied around the abdomen to reduce discomfort. Surgeon General William A. Hammond noted in 1863, "Preventing dysentery is a war in itself, it spreads faster than bullets." The lack of adequate medical care highlighted how unprepared both armies were for the realities of prolonged conflict. Number 2. Comrades and cannibalism? The Andersonville Horror. Andersonville Prison, or Camp Sumter, in Georgia epitomized the horrors of the Civil War. Housing up to 45,000 Union prisoners, the camp was designed for only 10,000. Overcrowding, starvation, and disease claimed the lives of 13,000 men between February 1864 and April 1865. Prisoners lived in makeshift shelters or dug holes for protection from the elements. Food shortages led to desperate measures. Some survivors claimed starving men consumed rats, insects, and even resorted to cannibalism. Former prisoner Robert Kellogg testified, "I saw with my own eyes a man tearing flesh from the corpse of his comrade." Henry Wurz, the camp's commandant, was held responsible for the atrocities. At his 1865 trial, witnesses recounted his inhumane treatment of prisoners. Found guilty of war crimes, Wurz was executed on November 10, 1865, becoming one of the only high-ranking officials punished after the war. How do you view the actions of the Andersonville prisoners? Were they driven by sheer desperation, or do you believe morality must endure even in the direst of circumstances? Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in their place? Number 3. Whiskey rations and addiction in the ranks. Alcohol was a staple in both Union and Confederate armies. Soldiers received whiskey or rum rations to boost morale, but abuse was rampant. A Union captain observed in 1862, "Our men are as likely to die with a whiskey bottle in hand as a rifle." General Ulysses S. Grant's struggles with alcoholism became a political weapon for his opponents. Despite periods of sobriety, rumors of his drinking persisted throughout his career. Abraham Lincoln famously quipped, "If I knew what brand of whiskey Grant drinks, I would send a barrel to my other generals." The Confederate Army faced similar issues. General Braxton Bragg wrote in an 1863 report, "Our men's spirits falter, and too often, they turn to spirits for courage." Alcohol addiction remained a hidden casualty of the war, with many veterans struggling long after the guns fell silent. Number 4. Child soldiers, boys on the front lines. The Civil War saw the participation of thousands of boys, some as young as 10, who either enlisted out of patriotism, a sense of adventure, or desperation. It is estimated that over 100,000 boys under 15 served in both the Union and Confederate armies. These young soldiers often entered as drummer boys or buglers, roles essential for relaying commands during battles. However, many lied about their age to join the ranks as combatants, facing the same brutal conditions as adults. John Lincoln Clem, famously known as Johnny Shiloh, became the face of child soldiers. Born on August 13, 1851, in Newark, Ohio, Clem ran away from home at 11 and attached himself to the 22nd Michigan Volunteer Infantry. At the Battle of Chickamauga in September 1863, Clem reportedly used a musket cut down to his size to shoot and kill a Confederate officer, earning him the nickname, the Drummer Boy of Chickamauga. His actions led to a promotion to sergeant, making him the youngest non-commissioned officer in U.S. Army history. The presence of children on the battlefield was both inspiring and tragic. A Union officer wrote in a letter dated July 1862, "The sight of a boy clutching a rifle amidst cannon fire chills the soul. His bravery is undeniable, but his innocence is gone." Boys often carried the weight of war long after it ended. Clem himself continued his military career, retiring as a major general in 1915, a living symbol of the sacrifices made by young soldiers. Number 5. The lice epidemic, crawling companions. Lice were an unavoidable part of soldier life, infesting clothing and bedding. Soldiers called them graybacks and developed creative ways to combat the pests, such as boiling their uniforms or holding lice races for entertainment. A Confederate soldier joked in a letter, "If the Yankees don't kill us, the lice surely will." Despite the humor, lice contributed to widespread misery and transmitted diseases like typhus, adding to the death toll. Number 6. Female soldiers disguised as men. Though women were officially barred from combat, hundreds disguised themselves as men to join the fight. Francis Clayton, a Union soldier, fought in multiple battles while posing as Jack Williams. These women endured the same brutal conditions as their male counterparts, often revealing their identities only after being wounded or captured. Clara Barton, who later founded the American Red Cross, said of them, "These women had the courage of lions, fighting for what they believed in despite society's scorn." Number 7. Fratricide, brother against brother. The Civil War split families apart, with brothers, cousins, and fathers fighting on opposite sides. One of the most tragic examples is the Battle of Front Royal, 1862, where members of the same family unknowingly fought and killed each other. A Confederate soldier wrote, "I realized too late that the man I had shot bore my mother's eyes." This brutal reality exemplified the war's deeply personal toll, leaving scars that would last for generations. Number 8. Medical horror, battlefield amputations. Civil War battlefield medicine was notoriously crude. With limited knowledge of germ theory and no anesthetics available, surgeons relied on amputation as the primary treatment for gunshot wounds. Over 60,000 amputations were performed during the war, often in unsanitary conditions that led to infection and death. Surgeons, known as sawbones, worked tirelessly, often completing an amputation in under 10 minutes. Soldiers were given nothing more than whiskey or a bullet to bite on for pain relief, leading to the phrase, "bite the bullet." A Confederate doctor described the scene in a letter, "The ground was stained with blood, and the pile of limbs grew higher with each passing hour. We were not healers but butchers." Despite the horrors, some soldiers survived and even thrived after their amputations. Union Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, for instance, endured multiple surgeries for wounds sustained at Petersburg but went on to serve as governor of Maine. These stories of resilience contrast sharply with the grim reality faced by the majority of amputees, many of whom succumbed to infection or struggled with their disabilities in a society ill-equipped to support them. Number 9. Sexual relationships, the unspoken reality. Sexual relationships were an unspoken but prevalent part of Civil War life. Soldiers, isolated for long periods, often turned to camp followers, including prostitutes, for companionship. Prostitution thrived near camps, with cities like Nashville and New Orleans becoming major hubs. In 1863, the Union Army legalized prostitution in Nashville to curb venereal diseases, requiring women to register and undergo medical checks. Despite this, diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea affected up to 8% of Union soldiers at any time, incapacitating thousands. Confederate troops, lacking regulation, suffered even greater outbreaks. A Confederate doctor lamented, "The wounds of battle are rivaled only by the plague of vice." Same-sex relationships, though taboo, also existed, revealed through letters and diaries expressing deep emotional and physical bonds. One soldier wrote, "Your friendship is my only solace in this desolate place." These relationships, whether out of longing or genuine affection, reveal a raw, human side of the war, challenging the era's rigid societal norms. Number 10. Desertion epidemic, the silent rebellion. By 1863, both armies faced mass desertions. Soldiers were disillusioned by the prolonged war, poor conditions, and lack of supplies. Nearly 200,000 Union soldiers deserted, while Confederate deserters left in droves as their home states fell under Union control. Confederate General Robert E. Lee lamented, "We fight not just the Yankees but our men's broken spirits." Many deserters faced execution if caught, but for others, the fear of death was preferable to the horrors of war.